He thought she was hiding something. She thought he'd never understand her truth, but what they didn't see coming was how deeply they'd change each other's lives. Grayson Blake didn't like surprises, especially not when they involved his 6-year-old son Micah. So when he overheard the new nanny whispering about bank deposits and overdue bills, every wall he'd built since his wife's passing flared back up. He hadn't become one of the youngest self-made tech moguls in the country by being naive. Trust wasn't something he gave away easily, not after what happened, but Isla Marin wasn't what she appeared to be. With her quiet presence and gentle way of handling Mika's meltdowns, she seemed almost too perfect. And perfect in Grayson's world usually came with a price. He decided then, he'd find out exactly who she was. Isla was used to being watched, judged even. Years in the foster system had taught her to move carefully, speak little, and always carry a backup plan. Grayson Blake, with his sharp eyes and colder demeanor, reminded her of the walls she'd climbed over her whole life. What he didn't know was that every extra dollar she earned went not into her pockets, but toward a place called Ember House, a community center she helped run on weekends. But she wasn't about to explain that to him. She was the help after all. Let him assume. She was here for Micah, not his approval. That night Grayson stood outside Mika's room longer than usual, watching Isla read to him, watching his son's tiny fingers curl around hers like she'd been in their lives forever. He clenched his fists. No one replaced Emily, ever. He couldn't afford to let someone in, not after how badly he'd failed at protecting them once. Still, something in Isla's voice, soft, almost musical, sent a strange warmth through his chest. He shook it off. She's hiding something. Stay sharp. Grayson made the call the next morning. Background check. Full detail, every job, every address. He wanted it all. But when the report came back there wasn't much, too little in fact. She'd moved often, worked short-term jobs, and listed only a P.O. box. No criminal record, no lawsuits, clean but oddly vague. He pressed the pie harder. There's always something, find it. Meanwhile, Isla packed leftover muffins into a brown paper bag and placed it into her purse. Saturday mornings were for Ember House, and the children there needed her. Grayson's curiosity pushed him to follow her. He told himself it was for Micah. If she turned out to be a fraud, it was better to know now. He trailed her across town into an old neighborhood, past cracked sidewalks and peeling paint. She parked beside a faded building. Ember House Youth Center. He watched her step inside with a smile that didn't match her usual quiet expression. Then he saw them, kids, dozens of them, hugging her like she was the only light in their lives. What was this? He waited outside, guilt creeping in as he watched her kneel beside a sobbing boy, wiping his tears, offering a toy, then laughing when the mood lifted. She wasn't paid for this. She wasn't performing, she was giving. For the first time in years, Grayson felt small and curious. She didn't know he was watching. On Monday he couldn't hold it in. I know where you go on Saturdays, he said casually over coffee. Isla froze. And why not just tell me, he asked. Isla stiffened. Because I didn't want your pity, or assumptions. Her voice cracked but held firm. I do what I can with what I have. That's not a crime. Grayson looked away, shame burning his neck. No, he said quietly, it's not. Grayson started noticing things. The little notes Isla left in Mika's lunchbox, the way she sang when she thought no one was listening, the patient way she spoke when Micah threw a tantrum. He began to wonder how many times he'd misjudged people, how often fear had made him cruel. He found himself asking questions, not as a boss, but as a man finally listening. One night Isla told him, about bouncing between homes, about growing up without birthday parties, about the one volunteer who used to read to her every Thursday. She made me feel like I mattered. I want to do that for someone else. Grayson didn't speak for a long time. Then softly, you do. Micah handed Isla a picture one afternoon. Crayon-drawn stick figures, him, her, and Grayson, holding hands. She blinked fast, hiding tears. Later, Grayson saw it pinned to the fridge. Something in his chest cracked open. Evenings on the porch became their sacred space, a quiet stretch of time where they could simply be. Isla would cradle a cup of chamomile tea while Grayson leaned back in his chair, the tension in his shoulders slowly melting away with every shared story and glance. They didn't need to fill the silence with anything but their presence. Some nights Grayson found himself laughing, really laughing for the first time in years. Isla would smile when he did, not with pride, but with understanding, like she knew he had needed that laughter more than he even realized. There was no pressure, no rush, just the slow burn of connection, igniting something long buried in both of them. They hadn't called it love yet, but it was there, growing quietly like a seed under soil. The media had a way of twisting intentions. The morning after Grayson's anonymous donation to Ember House, Isla awoke to a headline splashed across a news blog. Tech billionaire funds nanny's project, romance or charity? Photos of them at the center, smiling among children, were accompanied by wild speculation. Isla's stomach turned as she read. It wasn't just the gossip, it was the implication that she couldn't have done this on her own. That her identity was tied to a man, that her work, her cause, her years of effort were suddenly overshadowed by someone else's name. She stared at the screen, devastated. All the respect she'd built, the dignity she'd claimed, was it gone with a single headline? When Grayson walked into the kitchen later that day, Isla didn't greet him. She turned with eyes full of something sharp and weary. "Did you even ask me before putting my name in the headlines?" Her voice trembled with anger, but underneath it he heard hurt. Deep, layered, personal. "I'm not some side project, Grayson. I've worked my entire life to not be someone's pity case." Grayson, caught off guard, opened his mouth to speak, but she kept going. "I trusted you. I thought you saw me, not as a symbol, as a person." He stepped forward, but she shook her head and whispered, "Maybe I was wrong," and she walked out, leaving him with the weight of her words echoing in the room. That night Grayson didn't sleep. He paced the halls of his house, the one that had once been full of emptiness, and now felt achingly quiet in her absence. He wandered into the study where a photo of Emily smiled back at him from the mantel. She had been his great love, yes, but also his excuse, his reason to avoid feeling again, to keep people at arm's length. Isla had gently broken down those walls, and he had repaid her with control, packaging her story in a bow for public praise. He hadn't protected her. He hadn't listened. He thought of Isla's trembling voice, her fire, her pain, and in that silence Grayson finally understood. This wasn't just about guilt or misunderstanding, it was about seeing someone, and he had failed to do so when it mattered most. Weeks passed before Isla returned to Ember House. She expected to find things running as usual, but something had changed. The walls had been freshly painted, the art supplies replenished, the library expanded. A new mural stretched across the hallway. "Every child deserves to be seen." Beneath it a plaque read, "The Isla Marin Initiative for children who need a chance," inspired by a woman who gave her own. She stood frozen, eyes brimming. Grayson hadn't attached his name anywhere. No press release, no photos, just quiet respect. That afternoon she found a letter in her office mailbox. It was from him, one line handwritten. "You're not the help, you're the hope. I see that now." And she wept, not from anger but from the beautiful aching truth of it. Grayson didn't expect her to show up at his doorstep. But there she was, one hand in her coat pocket, the other curled tightly at her side. He stepped into the cold evening air and waited. Isla took a breath. "I was angry," she admitted, "but not just at you, at how easy it is for the world to reduce people, to turn dignity into a headline." Grayson nodded slowly. "You had every right to be angry. I didn't ask, I acted like I knew what was best and I didn't. I'm sorry." His voice was low, sincere. "I never wanted to silence your story. I just wanted the world to hear it." For a long moment they stood there in silence. Then Isla stepped forward, her hand slipping into his. "Next time," she whispered, "we write it together." It wasn't diamonds or fireworks. It wasn't staged for Instagram. It was in the middle of Ember House's courtyard, surrounded by chalk drawings and the sound of children's laughter. Grayson knelt on one knee beside a sandbox where Micah was building a crooked castle. He held out a small ring with a single sapphire. Simple, meaningful. "Micah and I, we're not whole without you," he said. "You don't complete us, you make us better. Will you be our family?" Isla looked from Grayson to Micah, who beamed and nodded enthusiastically. "Please say yes," he added. Tears shimmered in Isla's eyes. She didn't hesitate. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." Their wedding was quiet and beautiful, set in a park where Isla had once gone to cry after long shifts, now transformed with string lights and wildflowers. Micah walked her down the aisle, holding her hand like it was the most natural thing in the world. Grayson stood waiting, heart in his throat, a rare softness in his eyes. The vows weren't elaborate, just real. "I promise to see you," Grayson said, "for all you are, all you've been, and all you will be." Isla's voice cracked as she replied, "And I promise to love you, not in spite of your wounds but because of them." As they kissed, cheers rang out from a crowd of smiling children and teary-eyed staff. They hadn't just found love, they'd found home. Their house was no longer quiet. It echoed with laughter, stories, music, and the occasional cereal spill. Isla taught Micah how to bake muffins without burning them, and Grayson read bedtime stories in silly voices. Isla still volunteered at Ember House every Saturday, and now Grayson came too, not as the sponsor but as a volunteer, a mentor, and sometimes the guy who mopped up paint spills. Their life wasn't perfect. They argued over laundry, they got exhausted, but their love was steady, a living thing rooted in choice, trust, and mutual respect. "This is what I always wanted," Isla said one night, curled next to him on the couch. Grayson smiled, pulling her close. "Me too." Years later, Isla stood before a group of wide-eyed kids at Ember House, holding out a dog-eared book. A shy girl with tangled curls clung to her side. "You remind me of someone," Isla said softly. The girl looked up. "Who?" Isla knelt to meet her eyes. "Me, when I thought no one saw me." She handed the girl the book, then gently squeezed her hand. Around them, laughter echoed, art dried, and futures quietly unfolded. Grayson watched from the doorway, hand resting on Mika's shoulder, now a teenager. They had built something lasting, not just a home but a legacy. And it all began with one simple truth. When you choose to truly see someone, you give them the courage to become who they were meant to be. Enjoyed this emotional journey? Don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories about love, redemption, and second chances.